What is up, ProGuides family, and welcome back to another ProGuides patch rundown video. ADCs are finally getting some love. First the top lane, now ADCs. Amidst all this chaos, it's a good time for some of us. Today we're going to be running through all the changes that have hit Summoner's Rift for patch 10.8. This patch has so many changes I want to talk about, especially in the bottom lane, and I think we're all going to like these changes for the most part. And for our question of the day, which change this patch do you agree with or disagree with the most? I personally don't think Evelynn needed a buff because she's such a powerful carry in solo queue already. I mean, maybe it could have been good for pro play, I'm not really sure. A Xayah buff was well merited though. I don't see her around too often, she's been pretty weak. And I feel bad for her boyfriend Rakan, who's just duking it out on solo queue alone. Alright guys, let me know your answers down below. I'd love to read them. As I said before, I read all the comments. Alright guys, let's get into the video. First things first, my favorite section, you guys know what I'm talking about, it's the skins. A bunch of new Coven skins have been introduced this patch. Coven LeBlanc, Coven Morgana, Coven Zyra, and Coven Zyra Prestige Edition are now here, so make sure to grab one or maybe all of them. They look absolutely amazing and you can pick up chromas for them as well. I know I'm going to be copying a couple of these. Okay, now on to the balance changes. First, we're going to be talking about jungle personal power. A big systemic change to this patch is the allocation of jungle power. If you've watched any of our recent videos, you know that the jungle power has been an issue for a while now, and Riot has implemented a plethora of new content this patch to take note of. First up, Hunter's Talisman, Hunter's Machete, Skirmisher's Saber, and Stalker's Blade have all received an extra passive that amplifies their own healing by 50% when their owner has less than 30% health. Practically all junglers should now have some more health to work with, meaning that they'll be safer from invades or in a better spot to gank after clearing their jungle. Also, you'll now gain a home guard buff upon respawning before the 5-minute mark if you have a jungle item. This should make it a lot less punishing if you accidentally die during your jungle clear, get invaded, or botch a gank horribly. Overall, it's a little more forgiving early on, and you should still be able to come back after a minor setback early in the game. You gain 50% movement speed, decaying over 5 seconds. Shared kill XP has also gone down by 20% from levels 1 through 6 and 10% from 7 through 8. Solo kill XP, however, has gone up by 20% at levels 1 through 6 and 10% at 7 through 8. Essentially, going for solo invades and beating the other jungler is now more difficult, but much more rewarding than before. Well, at least after the 5-minute mark. A secondary effect of these changes is that junglers might be more willing to invade, then immediately look to execute themselves on an enemy turret afterwards. Since spawn timers are short early into the game, they'll gain the early home guard buff while also creating pressure on enemy laners with their invades. It's definitely a risky play, but I wouldn't be surprised if some junglers start going for more of these risky cheese plays. On top of this, jungle camp experience has gone up by 10% after level 9. Later into the game, junglers should have an easier time keeping up with the rest of their teammates. As games tend to be chaotic, junglers aren't always able to full clear, so now they'll have a little bit more XP to work with and don't have to focus so hard on power farming in the mid to late game. With that said, let's talk about the top lane. Set has been killing it since his launch. I have died countlessly to so many different sets, it is infuriating. You'd think that I'd learn how to counter him by now. He's a simple champion with ways to play around him, but in return, he's so strong. However, time and time again, he's shown that he's been a bit too strong, and Riot is looking to tone him down. His W's damage has gone down from 90 to 210 to 80 to 180. This will make a pretty noticeable difference at all stages of the game, especially at level 9, when you'd expect Set to be a monster with a maxed out Haymaker. Overall, this won't take Set out altogether, but he'll have a harder time dominating lane around the 10-minute mark and onwards. As a result, we've moved Set down to the A tier. He's still an extremely powerful pick, but he's not as reliable as before facing nerf after nerf. In spite of recent previous buffs, Urgot still wasn't that good. Once again this patch, he's receiving buffs, which might spell trouble for Summoner's Rift. His ult's cooldown has been reduced from 120 to 70 to 100 to 70, and his E is getting a bug fix. These are some pretty big buffs, guys, and it's likely that Urgot will make his resurgence very soon. It has been very difficult to balance Urgot in the past, and little buffs to him like these can go quite a long way on Urgot's kit. And just keep in mind, these are some pretty decent buffs to Urgot. Our top lane tier list sees a few changes this patch. Our S+ tier remains untouched. Darius, Fiora, and Wukong are the 3 strongest top laners, and you need to be playing them any chance you get. I just picked up Wukong, and I have just been killing it in the top lane. Our S tier, however, has a couple of shifts. We've moved Jax and Maokai into the S tier, replacing Set and Kalista. Kalista, who we'll talk about in the bot lane section, is receiving a massive nerf, which will significantly weaken her presence in the top lane. For now, we'll place her in the B tier, but she might disappear from the top lane altogether as a result of those nerfs. Some power picks to watch out for this patch are Nasus and Maokai. Maokai has been tearing his competition apart across all elos. He's simple but effective, which is why it's so scary knowing that he's strong. Anyone can play Maokai as long as they're smart about which fights they want to take. They can have an incredible impact on games. Nasus's buffs last patch have caused win rates to soar, and I especially recommend picking it up if you're a low elo player. He scales extremely well, and most low elo games go for that 25+ minute mark where Nasus really shines. Most players won't bully you effectively enough to shut you out, and the game times are much longer in low elo, and as a result, you'll probably hit those 500 stacks on your Q and then demolish carries in team fights. With that being said, let's head to the jungle next. First up, Master Yi has been too powerful across all levels of play. The funnel nerfs weren't enough, so he'd be hit again this patch, poor guy. The bonus attack speed he gains from his ultimate has been reduced from 30 to 80% to 25 to 65%. These nerfs are going to significantly cut down Master Yi's damage output, but he'll likely remain a solid pick in low elo especially. The nerfs in the early game aren't enough to be noticeable, but the loss of 15% attack speed at level 16 will be. By then, however, Master Yi should already be good to go. He's going to be in a weaker place, but he'll probably be just fine. He'll remain untouched in our tier list as a result and stay in the A tier for now. Next on the list is going to be Evelynn, who actually got buffed. She's a solid pick who did really well before, but hey, buffs are buffs. Let's just try and trust Riot on this one. Evelynn is a pretty crazy champion when she's strong, so I'm sure that if she gets too out of hand, they'll probably hit her with the nerf hammer soon. Her Q's damage has gone up from 25 to 35 to 30 to 50. This is a very, very large buff because don't forget, this is for each individual spike. Since she spams this ability, even the 5 extra damage at level 1 is pretty big. And if she's using it multiple times within a short span of time, you do the math. Evelynn is on the border of S tier, but our analysts want some more data before making that final call. We'll give you guys a better idea of how strong she is in our mid-patch update next week, so make sure to subscribe to receive a notification. With only 2 changes to the jungle champions, this won't shake up the meta too much. What will, however, is the earlier changes we mentioned. Presumably, many more off-meta junglers are going to emerge, so we'll have to wait and see because the changes may or may not be significant. For now, the tier list will remain untouched from our last mid-patch update. In our S+ tier, we have Elise, Warwick, Zac, and Wukong. Seriously, Wukong is absolutely busted in every role. Pick or ban this guy when you get a chance. For our high elo players, Elise is a staple pick for the insane amount of pressure she can apply on her opponents, but Wukong for pretty much every elo. There are some power picks we want to mention, however. With Master Yi being nerfed, there's still another power farming jungler that's really starting to find her footing, and that's Shyvana. In terms of her niche, she's sort of like an AP damage Master Yi. She has an insane clear speed, scales up, and one-shots her opponents. While she's quite a different champion, she's able to absolutely dominate games when her opponents aren't able to successfully find ganks or convert objectives off of takedowns. Fiddlesticks is also quite underrated. He's banned a lot, but a lot of players don't seem to think he's that strong. If you want the numbers, he held a 46% win rate last patch, but expect that number to be much, much higher this patch as players should now get a better grasp of how to play him. And if you guys want to get better at Fiddlesticks or any of the other champions, I recommend you go to ProGuides.com and find one of the many challenger coaches we have waiting to help you guys out. I've also talked to a lot of them personally. They're super nice people, and I've actually used a couple of them myself, and they've really helped me out. Alright, with that said, let's head into the mid lane. The first mid laner we want to talk about is Ryze. His last buffs weren't enough, so he got another. Good and competitive, bad in solo queue, you know the drill. Hopefully he's put into a decent spot soon, but more importantly, we all hope he doesn't get overbuffed. An OP Ryze one-shotting you is never a fun time. Once again, Riot is taking it slow, really slow with these buffs. Ryze's base health has gone up from 570 to 575, his base AD from 55 to 56, and Q's movement speed bonus from 20 to 40 to 28 to 44%. These buffs are not huge by any stretch of the imagination, but some extra movement speed on his Q should make it easier for Ryze players to outplay their opponents. Honestly, I don't think this will make a huge difference. Our challenger analysts are a little skeptical of buffing Ryze at all, but we'll see what happens. Orianna has been underperforming for a while now. She's far from the worst mid laner in the game, but she's hovered around a 47 to 48% win rate for pretty much the entire season. Now she's finally gotten the love that she needed. Her W's speed bonus and reduction have been increased from 20 to 40% to 30 to 50%. Also, the AP ratio on her E has gone up from 0.4 to 0.5. Her W is definitely going to be a lot more noticeable this patch. The additional movement speed and slow creates a lot of versatility and ultimately more kill pressure. An increased slow means that it'll be harder to get out of the ball's range after being hit by her W. As a result, following up with an ultimate will be much easier. Also, the extra movement speed provides some great utility for her allies and herself. 10% more movement speed alongside a buff to her E should make her early game much safer than before. Our analysts had her placed too high previously, so they've reassigned her to the B tier for now. With some small buffs to these two champions, we don't expect the mid lane meta to shift very much at all. However, we've made a couple shifts on the list. First of all, we've added Pantheon to the A tier. He's been dominating the mid lane meta in spite of a low play rate. The amount of kill pressure he has in lane, alongside his insanely powerful roams, merit him as an incredible mid lane pick at the moment. In our S+ tier, we have Talon alongside Fizz and Diana. Talon has been performing spectacularly. It's as if he never got nerfed to begin with. He held a 53% win rate last patch and has shown that he's easily one of the strongest carries on Summoner's Rift. With how mobile he is, Talon is capable of taking advantage of all the mistakes that players make. Following in the S tier are Kassadin, Katarina, Echo, Cassiopeia, Vladimir, Zed, Yasuo, and Qiyana. Picks for this patch in the mid lane, I'd personally watch out for Galio and Pantheon. Pantheon is a solid answer to pretty much all the S or S+ tier champions at the moment. As a blind pick, he's great as well, doesn't have many bad matchups, and his roams are equally as powerful as champions like Echo and Talon. Both of these champions have a ton of cross-map pressure with their ultimates, which is great for the chaotic fights that randomly break out as well. That's a wrap for the mid lane, guys. We're going to be talking about the bot lane next, which is where a lot of this patch's content is really at. First up, Senna got nerfed again. Senna has been scaling too reliably, so she's been toned down once again. Her passive's drop rate on minions she doesn't kill has gone down from 25% to 22%. While not a giant nerf, it'll make her scaling noticeably slower. Not picking up as many miss rates means that Senna's AD and attack range are going to go down in the late game. She's still an extremely versatile pick, however, so Senna will remain in the S tier for now. Aphelios, we are sorry, my guy, but you're going to be nerfed yet again. Ugh, just seems so unjust. His bonus armor penetration from level up stats has been changed to lethality. This means that 3% to 18% armor penetration is now 2 to 12 lethality. Also, his Q will now scale from levels 1 to 13 instead of 1 to 9. So that does mean that at level 13, his Q will now have the same strength that it currently does at level 9. So it's going to take longer for him to come online. Not good, not good. I'm sorry, Aphelios. As a result, he will be moved to the B tier. Especially with lethality replacing armor penetration, he's going to feel a lot weaker than before. Varus's poke build has returned to Summoner's Rift, and he's been far too strong. Varus's nerfs don't target his damage, but they do substantially take away from his early kill pressure. His R's cooldown has gone up from 110 to 70 to 130 to 70. Slapping on an extra 20 seconds on his ultimate's cooldown means that he's not going to have as many opportunities to aggressively ult his opponents. Not only does this mean that he'll have less kill pressure, it also takes some safety away as well. Essentially, his R is his strongest self-peeling tool, and not having it for a potential tower dive is pretty crushing for Varus. He'll still have the same playstyle and probably still remain relevant in the bot lane, but there should be some more room to capitalize on Varus's immobility now. He'll remain in the B tier as we don't think this will make him significantly weaker. Kallista's presence in the bot lane as well as her tyranny up in the top lane has created a need for a change. Like I mentioned earlier, she's being gutted quite severely this patch. Kallista's base armor is being reduced from 23 to 21, and her E's slow from 25 to 45% to 10 to 42%. This is a pretty crippling nerf, and I don't even know, honestly, I don't think this was kind of justified. I know they wanted to get rid of her in the top lane, but come on, this is really big. But the bright side for Kallista players is that her damage isn't being touched at all. Bad news is that tagging an opponent with a spear and then executing a minion for the slow won't be as effective anymore. It'll be much easier for her opponents to run away from her now, meaning that her ability to poke enemies during the lane phase has gone down substantially. She'll still have an amazing all-in and solid damage output early on, but it's much easier to run away from her now, so we're going to move her down to the C tier for now. Xayah has been underperforming significantly since the beginning of this season, so it's nice to see her receive a buff. The E damage fall off per feather has gone down from 10% to 5%, meaning that her damage has gone up. Players will now be rewarded much more for pulling multiple feathers through a single target. For now, Xayah remains in the A tier. Ashe also received buffs this patch. Her Q's attack speed has gone up later into the game. Its ratio was increased from 20 to 40% to 20 to 60%. That extra 20% bonus attack speed will be especially nice in the late game once Ashe has some items finished already. That's a little bit more than a dagger's worth of attack speed. While this will make Ashe stronger in the late game, she's going to have a lot more competition to deal with in the bot lane early on because of all the various buffs other marksmen have been receiving. The winner of all these balance changes in the bot lane, though, is definitely Tristana. Her E's bonus AD ratio is going up from 50 to 130% to 50 to 150% AD. As a result, players need to watch out for her all-ins. I've seen way too many of my teammates straight up int because they don't respect Tristana jumping in, tagging them with her E, and then murdering them. Tristana is moving up to the A tier as a result of her newfound pressure in the early game. As always, she's an amazing late game hyper carry, but this boost to her early game should help her dominate games through winning lane. In our S+ tier, well, you guessed it, it's Miss Fortune again, and she's not going anywhere anytime soon. Miss Fortune is way too powerful. She's easily the strongest laner in the game, and it definitely feels like there's no solid counterpick to her at the moment. In the S tier, we have Senna, Ezreal, Vayne, Lucian, Caitlyn, Jinx, Kai'Sa, and Draven. I definitely watch out for Ashe and Tristana this patch. Ashe was definitely in a good spot before this buff, and some extra strength in the late game can only help her out. Alright guys, that's it for ADC, so now let's head into supports. Soraka received another compensation buff after the immense nerf aimed at pushing her out of the top lane. This last set of buffs should hopefully put her where she needs to be. Her base mana has gone up from 375 to 425, and her Q's mana cost has gone down from 60 to 80 to 45 to 65. Her Q is much more spammable now, so she should be able to put up a fight during the laning phase. While this buff alone is insignificant, if you couple in the ones she's received previously, it's quite clear that Soraka is once again ready to scrap down in the bot lane. We're going to be keeping her in the A tier for now, but we'll just see what she does next week because I'm very curious to see if she can make that push. With practically no balance changes hitting the supports this patch, there's not much for our analysts to work off of. In the S+ and S tier, well, they remain pretty much unchanged. In the S+ tier, we still have Leona and Blitzcrank for their incredible win rates, play rates, and ban rates. Everyone either loves playing them or hates them enough to ban them every time. In the S tier, we also have Thresh, Nautilus, Nami, Pyke, Morgana, Lulu, and Bard. However, some adjustments have been made to the tier list based on recent trends. Zilean has jumped to the A tier. He's doing astoundingly well in this current meta, as a lot of the champions that dive in to score some kills often don't have ways of getting out. We're looking at you, Set, and Darius. Without a doubt, the various forms of utility he provides are great in nearly all situations, and the bonus experience he can provide teammates is also a huge plus. Braum has been pushed to the B tier. He's an incredibly powerful champion, but his inability to provide pressure in a lot of lane matchups inhibits him from hard carrying solo queue games like many other champions can. Braum is an excellent pick under the right circumstances, but as a pick in general, especially in solo queue, there are some better options to choose from. Alright guys, that concludes our 10.8 patch rundown. If you guys enjoyed this video, then you know what to do. Please leave us a like, it really helps us out a lot. And also subscribe if you want to stay up to date with content like this. Just to give you guys a heads up, we will be streaming on ProGuides now, which is really exciting, so you can see pro players like Mike Young and Pobelter and Zyrene all streaming on ProGuides as well as our YouTube channel. Go check it out. We got some amazing stuff for you guys at ProGuides, an amazing course with Doublelift, some other pro players, and the ability to play with challenger players whenever you want. Once again, guys, it's been Christoph. Thank you so much for joining me today on this video, and I look forward to the next one. That's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your next few games, and I'll see you on the Rift.